Could Damian Lillard be traded to the New York Knicks? Let's get into this. When you think about the most loyal players in the NBA, the first player that comes to your mind is Damian Lillard. He's been notorious for saying ever since he'd been drafted by the Blazers, he wanted to be a guy that finishes his career with the same team that he got drafted by, and that would be the Portland Trailblazers. And nobody really expected him before this season to even request a trade or even think about requesting a trade. But after season after season, after disappointing loss in the first round for the Blazers, we may be seeing a tipping point with Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers. After this season losing in the first round of the playoffs again for the Blazers, Lillard made it very clear that he was very upset and very frustrated with where the Blazers were going. And at that time, there were some reports that Lillard may want to trade or whatever, but at the time, not a lot of people took it too seriously, including myself, because there have been trade rumors in the past with Lillard, but it never ended up happening. Lillard was just that guy. Whenever rumors came out, you just dismissed them because he was known as such a loyal guy and a guy who was never actually going to leave the Portland Trailblazers. But now there have been more reports that seem a little more serious that Lillard, within the next few days, that he actually might request a trade. And the two teams at the top of his list is apparently one is the New York Knicks and number two is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, if this is going to happen or not, it's really besides the point, but I made a video recently saying that the New York Knicks are going to acquire a superstar in the near future. And if Lillard is actually going to go to the Knicks or not, it's kind of irrelevant. The main thing that I just wanted to touch upon is the Knicks finally got it together. They have a good coach, they have a good organization, they have good players, they're finally starting to win. And when you have all those things down pat, New York and Madison Square Garden just sells itself, and I think we're finally starting to see that. But now let's look into what Damian Lillard does, what makes him so great, and what makes him, in my opinion, possibly the best point guard in the NBA, true point guard. So ever since Lillard came into the NBA, he was always known as a scorer and a score-first point guard, and we've seen that extremely well throughout his whole career. He's an amazing three-point shooter. He can shoot from extremely deep, as we've been seeing in the playoffs and just in general in the regular season. He has incredible range. He can create his own shot from the three-point range with those side steps and step backs from three, which he's very effective at. He can get all the way to the basket, and he's very athletic, so he can easily dunk over you or use that athleticism to finish around you with crafty layups. He also has a little bit of a floater game, which every point guard, in my opinion, needs when you're running in the pick and roll. It's just it's a shot that's very available in the pick and roll, and as a point guard or a ball handler, I think you really need that, and he has that. Lillard doesn't necessarily have that much of a mid-range game. He could hit mid-range shots, he just doesn't use it as much as he can if he wanted to, but the mid-range shot is kind of an older shot. Not a lot of players use it. Now they use that three-point shot in replacement of that mid-range shot because it's more efficient and more effective. And he could pass a little bit. He's obviously not a great passer. He's more of a scoring guard. But when there's guys open on his team, he can find them and hit them for wide open three-point shots or cutting all the way to the basket for easy dunks or layups. He's not completely inept at passing. And on the defensive side of the ball, Lillard is definitely not a great defender and not even a good defender. He's just an okay defender. He gets the job done. But now let's get into it. Are there reports about Damian Lillard potentially wanting a trade and his top two teams as the New York Knicks and Philadelphia 76ers? Does that have any legitimacy to it, and could that actually happen? I think this point, it's definitely not likely, I would say at this point, just due to his track record. In the past, Lillard, every time there was trade rumors, he's always denied them, and he never got traded, of course. But I think this point, more than any other time, this is the most legit it's ever gotten. And if he were going to get traded from the Blazers, I think this would be the time it would happen. And I think these reports are a lot more realistic and a lot more trustworthy than the reports after the Blazers first lost in the playoffs and Lillard was obviously frustrated. So those reports I feel like were less likely to be true just because it was obvious that Lillard was frustrated at that point, and obviously they're going to put out rumors that he might want to get traded or whatever. But for them to come out at this point, I think after time was went by and Lillard was able to reflect on him, I think it's a lot more realistic at this point. But at this point, would I say that it's likely for Lillard to get traded at this point? I just can't say it's likely. And actually, just at the time of recording this video, there's actually been a video out of Lillard actually responding to these trade rumors, saying that they're not true, and he hasn't made any firm decisions at this point. And now you may say, obviously Lillard's not going to leave now because he just denied the trade rumors himself, and he said it himself. But there's one thing I just want to point out. That very well could be true, by the way, but I just want to point out something. In the past, whenever he was asked about trade rumors, Lillard says ultimately he was always going to stay with the Blazers and he was committed to the Blazers. The difference is this time he said he hasn't made his decision yet, a firm decision for his future. He didn't say that he was going to stay with the Trailblazers. That's something a little different that happened this time than in the past. And maybe this means absolutely nothing. Maybe I'm I'm looking into this a little too much and too deep, but I just think that's something important, that's something to keep in mind going forward. But now let's talk about the actual trade rumor. So in the rumor, it listed the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers as the two teams that Lillard would potentially want to go to. So let's talk about each team, the Knicks and the Sixers. Let's talk about the potential fit with Lillard for them, and let's talk about a potential trade offer that those teams can offer the Blazers. So first, let's start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. Just the thought of having Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid on the same team is absolutely lethal, and if they can pull this off, they'll be an instant championship contender. Obviously, the Joel Embiid-Ben Simmons experiment wasn't working for years now, and the issue was Ben Simmons just couldn't shoot whatsoever. It's not that Ben Simmons wasn't a good player and he wasn't a star player in this league. He just couldn't shoot, and it didn't give Embiid enough room in the paint and in the post to do his work. And with Damian Lillard, it'll be the complete opposite. Lillard can shoot from literally half court, so Embiid's going to have all the space he needs in that post area, and when Lillard is out there, he can create for himself at the three-point line. It would just open up so much space for Embiid in the post, and I think it's the biggest thing for them. And for Lillard, it would make life a lot easier for him as well, because when Embiid's in the post, obviously they're going to send double teams, which would leave a lot more guys open, potentially Damian Lillard for open threes. It's just going to take so much pressure off him as well. And to my memory, let me know in the comments if I'm missing somebody, but Lillard has never played with a center that's as dominant on the defensive end as Embiid is. He's a true defensive anchor. So as I said before in the video, Damian Lillard is not necessarily a good defender, obviously not a great defender. He's an okay defender. But if he knows that he has Embiid behind him and he lets someone blow by him, he has a lot more peace of mind knowing Embiid is in that paint, blocking all those shots, and then at the very least contesting those shots very well, or as well as you potentially can. So it gives him a lot of confidence on the defensive end as well to maybe make more gambles and maybe get more steals as well. Having Embiid obviously helps out Damian Lillard a ton as well. But now let's talk about a potential trade offer. So of course it's obvious Ben Simmons will be involved in this trade offer, but what else would be involved? So the standard whenever you trade a superstar player at this point has always been at the very least 3 first-round picks as the baseline, and then you add players on top of that. But just due to the fact that Ben Simmons, even though his value is as low as it's ever been, and a lot of people think Ben Simmons is trash or whatever, I still think that Ben Simmons is at the very least a high-level all-star in this league, and I think people are just underrating him, and I think going forward people will realize. But for that reason, I think the Sixers could potentially get away with only having to give up 2 first-round picks in Ben Simmons and also another guy on top of that. But it could at the very well be 3 first-round picks just due to the fact that Ben Simmons' value is so low now compared to what it was. But another trade offer that I could potentially see happening, maybe this is a little too much for the Sixers to give up, but would potentially be only 1 first-round pick, Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. That's another deal I could see. But then the Blazers would have to give up an extra guy because they would have to make the money work. Because the Blazers already at this point, they don't have a lot of money at all. But now let's move on to the New York Knicks. How would Damian Lillard fit with them? So I think obviously Dame fits with every team in the NBA very well. He's just an absolute superstar and the best true point guard in my opinion. But with the Knicks specifically, I think he would be an amazing fit. He would be in the Big Apple. He would probably be one of the most popular NBA players around when you go to the Big Apple, and especially if you start winning, he would probably be the most popular player behind maybe LeBron James. But in terms of the fit, most likely the Knicks would have to give up either Julius Randle or RJ Barrett. So let's assume they have to trade RJ Barrett for this. So I think Lillard would fit very well with Julius Randle actually. They can run the pick and roll very efficiently. It would take a lot of pressure off Julius Randle in terms of having to handle the ball and play make for his team. He could just let Dame do that. And also for Dame, it would also take a lot of pressure off him because he has another true superstar scorer, or at least an all-star scorer in Julius Randle, who has obviously proved last season that he's a very legit scorer throughout the entire season. And also besides the players that they have already, Immanuel Quickley would also be a very big piece for them. Obi Toppin, if they keep him, I think he's going to be a pretty big piece as well going forward. But you would think besides the players they actually have on their actual roster at this point, they have a ton of money going into the offseason. And if they were able to get a guy like Damian Lillard to the New York Knicks in New York, you would think it would attract maybe other superstars to come along with him. Maybe you think about a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I don't know how realistic that is, but if they got Damian Lillard, obviously it's a lot more realistic than it would be right now. But a potential trade offer for Lillard going to the New York Knicks would be either Julius Randle or RJ Barrett, one of those 2 guys, Mitchell Robinson, 3 first-round picks, and maybe another guy like Obi Toppin or Immanuel Quickley. Maybe the Knicks don't have to throw in Obi or Immanuel Quickley, and that just would be too much. But the very least, the base trade package, in my opinion, would be either Julius Randle or RJ Barrett, just to reiterate, 3 first-round picks and Mitchell Robinson at the very least. But this is all speculation. At this point, I can't really say that it's likely that Lillard would get traded whatsoever. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Dame could potentially actually get traded this time, or do you think this is like all the other times and he's not going to end up getting traded? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out guys.